What's up, guys? Big Papa Drock back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. And guys, I am so stoked because as you can see on the screen here, not only am I not alone, I am not alone times 3. I've got 3 other awesome, sexy raid creators for you guys to look at instead of just looking at my pale face. So let me introduce them. We've got the one and only Cruisin here. We've got Biohack, and we've got my boy Shinny. Guys, welcome to the channel. It is such a pleasure to have you here. How are you all doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, what they said.
What they said. This is going to be fun. So we're going to do sort of a podcast style video today, guys, on Arena. Our general thoughts on kind of where things are at, what we want to see changed, maybe just kind of a conversation on live arena, maybe even classic arena, and just PvP in general in Raid. I got to give a hat tip to Cruisin for coming up with this idea. He was the one who suggested it. And then we were like, you know what? Who do we include in this conversation? Because as you guys probably know, arena content creators, there really aren't a ton of people in the Raid scene that focus on that and that make that their identity. But one of the great things that does occur is that the people that do are very passionate about it. So obviously you've got me. We all know I love Arena. I've done it for a long time. But then the gentleman to my, I guess, left, right? I don't know. It depends on how you're looking at the screen. Are also well known for doing a lot of Arena content. So super stoked to have you guys on the channel and to get to talk about live Arena and Arena in general in Raid. So yeah, with that, we're going to I'll try to moderate this as much as possible so that we're not all talking over each other the entire time. But obviously we're all super passionate, so I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. So yeah, so let's start with you, Cruisin. So obviously, if you guys don't know, Cruisin has 2 different accounts that he's known for here in the Raid scene. The first is his own, which is under IPR Cruisin, I believe. And then the other account, of course, is the overall #1 spot in Arena, and that's IPR Doc Moreau, my nemesis of many Doc versus Drock battles and hilarious hijinks. So, Cruisin, I'd like to know a little bit more about how that works, because if I remember correctly, you told me once that Doc Moreau account is like driven by a couple of different people, or how does that actually work?
It worked. It started with me and Doc. We had a partnership back when I was a leader of a Brazilian-only clan when we first started, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago for me, 4 years for him. And I noticed that Doc was a guy that wanted to be big, but he doesn't know how to be big. And I approached him and said, like, do you want us to have kind of a partnership? And we will try to make your account one of the top in the game, because you have the resources, I got the knowledge, and we can make a very good partnership. He's very passionate about the game. I never saw someone so much passionate about the game as Doc it is. He enjoys every part of the game, and even more Arena. He doesn't play by himself every time because he hates to lose. He hates to lose.
Well, then we have that in common, because I hate losing, and I'm sure Biohack feels the same way as does Shinny. I think we've all had moments on stream. I've checked everybody else's streams out as well, whether they realize it or not. Sometimes I'll lurk and just watch, but we've all had moments where maybe we get a little upset. Maybe nobody quite so much as me, but that's probably for the best for everyone's blood pressure. So okay, so you basically, so I guess one clarification I want to know, so is Doc the only person that's actually spending on the account?
Yes, it is.
So it's only him.
Yes, he's the owner, and he's the guy who keeps the account alive, bump wise. Let me say like this.
Wow.
He's the only spender, and he's the only owner like this. But we have a partnership in the ideology of the account. How we gonna make the account progression? What kind of content we're gonna invest? What kind of packs we're gonna invest? What kind of gear? The resources, where we're gonna spend? How we're gonna spend? This is all we debate. So if I have an idea, I say like, Doc, we need to make 3 trend 6 stars. So all the investment needs to go on souls.
Wow.
So he starts to build up souls. Now, Doc, we don't need souls anymore. Let's go for energy. We need the dust. We need gear. We need something like this.
I love this, man. It's like anytime I face you guys, I'm facing a Hydra. There's multiple heads I have to deal with. So that is nuts. That's so interesting for me to finally know that, because I wasn't sure exactly how it worked. And obviously, you know, you guys are the top overall a holder in live arena with a very strong win rate as well, and an absolutely stacked account. I think one of the probably the strongest accounts in the entire game. So you're kind of in that like ultra Kraken, god tier Leviathan whale level that even I aspire to, which is pretty cool. And so now here on the leaderboard, then if we scroll down a little bit, we got me slacking super hard. I have not played live arena basically at all in the last several months. I have just been taking an absolute extended vacation, and lots of people have let me know about it. So I got to stop being lazy, but I'm down here around the 38 spot. Still holding strong with a nice 80% win rate, which I'm sure will disappear quite soon when I jump back into things. And then we got Biohack, and Biohack, you've been pushing a lot recently in your videos and showing kind of your streams where you're like borderline top 50 now and have been grinding super hard. So what's that experience been like? Because correct me if I'm wrong, like you're not, you know, if Doc Moreau is maybe the biggest spender in our group, I'm probably next, I would imagine. Obviously Cruisin has his own account, which we'll get to I think a little bit. Cruisin, you're not top 50, right? With your other account, you're top.
I'm 60.
So you're right next after that. So we'll cover that in a second. But yeah, like obviously you spent a little bit in the game like we have, but what's it like now that you're battling other Krakens consistently?
So I guess to clarify, my spending level is I'm definitely not free to play, but I'm in the realm of like a couple $100 a month in my spending. So I've only pulled like 9 Void Legos in 4 years, however long I've been playing the game, and pulled 2 mythicals, which I've gotten pretty lucky about in 100 shards. I think it's been interesting, right? Like fighting the Krakens for sure. Like the meta has shifted a lot with the advent of mythicals. But I actually kind of enjoy it. I really like going against people who have clearly put a lot more money into their account and have been able to beat them. I beat Doc's account for the first time the other day, and Cruisin was screaming.
Oh snap! Did you
so
did you jump up and like go absolutely crazy? Were you
oh
losing
yeah,
your mind?
I was taking screenshots. I mean, I haven't bought him, since I was talking to Cruisin when I did it, and he's like, "You got to send me a screenshot so I can go show it to Doc." Yeah, but I mean, I beat him with Arbiter, Kaja, Narses, and Georgids. So I mean, 3 of those champions are either free or past guaranteed champions. So that's what I really like is using sort of the more free to play friendly stuff. That being said, my gear is really good, and that's mostly just about gear management and like being very diligent about using Chaos Ore and that kind of stuff. So I'm known for being very fast. My Kaja, well, I slowed her down a little bit, but she was around 455 speed.
Yeah,
gives me some good advantages, and
which is nuts. Yeah. That's faster than anybody on my account for sure. And I think you got didn't you have like protection set to get that or something crazy or what?
Yeah,
were you doing?
She's in 5-piece protection and 2-piece or 2 speed sets. So yeah. Well, the reason she slowed down a little bit actually was she was in divine speed, because I have a quad divine speed helmet I got from one of those card flip events. But the extra shield was just screwing me up so much in the Narses meta that I had to take it off, and it slowed her down a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, that is also a big. I can't wait to get into that, like how the meta has changed, because it's definitely changed a lot in the last like 5-6 months, basically since like December, but even really when with mythicals came into the game. But okay, cool, that's awesome. So you beat Doc, that always feels good. I love the screenshotting thing. I used to do that all the time when I was an up and coming player, where if I beat back in the day like Machan's defense or Boomer or anybody else, I'd be like, I gotta get a screenshot and show it to my clan mates. Look at me, I'm a big ass whale now. You know what I mean? So I totally empathize with that and love that. So that's awesome. So you're in there, you're battling, and I think that actually brings up a really good point. Maybe we can get to that later a little bit, but it is interesting how at the top level, it is possible to beat people who've spent more money, even if you haven't as much. There are a lot of reasons for that, RNG, or maybe you just happen to make the right decision, or you get lucky, or whatever. So it is interesting how that's possible. But after you, Biohack, then we have Cruisin's account. And so this is your actual personal account, Cruisin. So this is the one that when you spend on this account, correct?
Yes, it is.
Cool. Cool. And also still a super strong account as well. So you have quite a bit on this. Not quite as strong maybe as Doc's account.
Right.
Yeah, but still pretty strong. So that's awesome. So you got your own account. Do you use some of the same strategies on your account that you would on the Doc account?
To be fair, it's completely different. Completely different. On Doc, we rely so much on the diversity of the champions we got. To be fair, what makes Doc's account a little bit different from other accounts that I saw, it's how many good champions we have built. Like we face good players, the best players, and they have the best champions built. So we cannot use a weak build against a very strong build. Even if a champion it's kind of broken, and if he has a weak build facing a strong build, he will lose to the strong build. So the difference of Dog's account, it's how many champions we have with amazing status, and this diversity of champions to select makes it very unpredictable how to make a move against him. It's not like playing against Biohack or against me or against Shinny that rely on 10 champions with good gear.
Super true, because I think everybody has strats that they're known for, like from the videos that I watch. Like, I'll watch Biohack. I've seen you do bombs, which I personally have never done. I've seen you rip out bombs. I also know, like, watching your stuff, you're super fast. You use a lot of Georgid now, which I think you built in Merciless recently, if I remember correctly. So that's one of the things that you do. And then obviously Shinny, and we'll get to you now. Shinny is known for a lot of UDK, Rhodos, Duchess type usage. And then also I think you've been busting out Xena every now and then as well, Shinny. And now obviously you've got a Narcissus. So Shinny, you are without a doubt the lowest spender of the group. I think overall over time, you're not quite free to play, which you've talked about on your channel. You're also not top 100 at the moment, but you did reach top 100 on your account, and we're in that tier. So what has your PvP live arena experience been like, having been what I would call a very low overall spender in the game?
Well, it kind of depends on the meta, and that's kind of why I used to be a lot more active last year. Then this year, I feel like it got a lot harder, and I wasn't winning as much, and I kind of got demotivated to play it more. So it kind of goes like up and down between the metas. But I have very, like Cruisin was talking about the fact that they have every good champion in the game with good gear. I guess we all have the same thing, that I have really good gear, but I have only a couple of champions that I use every time, and it's kind of easy to counter me. That's my biggest issue, because if people don't counter my teams, I can beat very strong accounts. And sometimes, I mean, I have beaten like top 3 accounts before, but then I lose to some much worse accounts too if they have some of my biggest Achilles heels. Like if they come with the Harima team and they have multiple local champions, my account is very one-dimensional and easy to counter, let's say.
Yeah, that is very true, because I know you don't have a Yumiko or Warlord or even a Crixia, right?
Yeah, I don't have any lockout champion, and basically my 3 good nukers are Rotos, Wukong, and Narcissus. And if you pick or ban those, then my next best nuker is gonna be Staldus, and it's gonna be big downgrade even after Staldus. So I'm missing a lot of like even stuff like Harima and Ragas. I don't even have Ragas, so those are my biggest issues. If people pick like Harima and UDK, I'm usually pretty screwed. But then sometimes if people don't do it, I have beaten like those Chinese accounts that are in the top 3 and so on. Sometimes if people are not familiar with my account, let's say.
Yeah, so that's always interesting, because people really know, I think for all of us, with maybe the exception being Doc because of the diversity of champions, but for the most part, people have seen us live stream. They've seen our strategies, what we tend to go to. I think all of us pretty openly share our builds. I know I have, and I think, Shinny, you linked to yours on Hell Hades Optimizer, and Biohack, I know you've shown your builds on stream. I used to think that, like, you know, my opponents, like, they must look them up. They know exactly what I have. And maybe they do. I've never actually spent the time doing that, but it is one of those things that's out there where someone knows what you run. They know how to counter it. And speaking to what you said, like, I can't remember who said it, like, you know, it's gotten a lot harder. And I could not agree more. It has gotten so much harder to win consistently, in my opinion, in Live Arena in the last 6 or 7 months. Like, I remember back on my birthday, which is December 4th of last year, I did a stream, right? And I won every battle that night. That was the first time that it happened, where every battle I won. I was facing Doc, I was facing like Husky, all of the Ultra Krakens, and I won every single one. It was just one of those things where everything broke my way and I played out of my mind and I got really good RNG. There is no way in hell that I could do that now. That is not happening whatsoever. So I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think has contributed to things getting so much more difficult in terms of really getting that consistent win streak going just in the last several months?
Let me go first. First of all, Mythicals. It's undeniable. They changed all the gameplay. Things that were not in meta, like speed. Speed was getting out of meta consistently. Champions were getting slower and slower and slower. And then we got Stone Skin, Reaction, and Mythicals. And that changed everything, because there's no strategy that can face these three kind of things in a single simple way. There is always RNG or something more complex involving the Mythicals, the Stone Skin gear, and the Reaction. And you cannot face everybody with different builds at the same time, not getting caught by a slow champion with Reaction, or a slow champion with Stone Skin, or a very fast champion with Reaction, or a very fast champion with Stone Skin, and a Mythical that can change form, not getting locked or being polymorphed. You know, there are so many strategies that are very powerful right now that makes it's getting harder and harder to make a win streak.
Yeah.
Unless you have very weak opponents against a very strong account.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Biohack, what else do you think? So definitely Mythicals, I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think Mythicals for sure. I mean, Armons has definitely changed things a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. It's two Mythicals in particular. Well, okay, I was going to comment two things. One thing, I think it varies a lot whether you run go first strategies or go second strategies. And as a player who almost always runs go first strategies, like, my experience is so drastically different than like Shinny, for example, who always runs go second, in terms of who's good and who's bad and like what the weaknesses are. For me, what's made things so rough is Siegfried and Galathier in particular. Siegfried is such a difficult champion to counter, because unless you know how he's built ahead of time, it's really tricky to like get in there. Like, essentially for me, it's like, if he's in Stone Skin, I have to use a bomb champion. Like, that's the only option I really have on my account. And if he's not in Stone Skin, I have to use someone who can ignore passives. And if I don't know ahead of time which one it is, it's just like a complete gamble in terms of whether or not I can get a win. So I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, like Cruisin said, Mythicals. And I think another thing about Mythicals too is the fact that they're affinity based, right? Which means all of them are going to introduce a lot more weak hit potential for different things. Like, I started using Crixia when I pulled her instead of Warlord all the time. And that, she's great, she's amazing, but there's way more RNG in fights now, because if I weak hit an Ancora and then she revives someone with full turn meter and, you know, all their skills back, that's just, it's like an RNG loss. Like, I have the accuracy to do it, but there's weak hit potential there with Mythicals. So I think that's a big part of it too, as well.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Absolutely. Shinny, what do you think? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I kind of completely agree what they said, but from, like, I have of course my own perspective on it, but it's the speed meta and Mythicals. For me personally, the issue is that a lot of my favorite champions in the past, like for instance Helicath, who I'm probably most well known in Live Arena from using, he used to be a massive cheese and super annoying for like most players, And if you don't directly counter it, then he could pretty much solo very good teams. But in the current meta, when they have introduced many new primal champions, many of them do either buff strip or block bus debuff or lockout, or they might even do multiple of those things. And often people kind of counter my old strategies even without trying to do it. Like, I can pick Helicath against anybody, and I feel like kind of what Cruisin said before, that speed meta is a lot better than before, and it's kind of harder to go with Go second team, because not only are they gonna probably have Armans if they first pick, whoever is first pick is gonna pick Armans, and most likely, generally everybody bans Armans. It's very rare that somebody bans anything else than Armans. And let's say that my three main hookers are Rotos, Wukong, and Narses. Let's say that they pick Narses, and then they have, like, I don't know, Armans, Grixia, and Harima. I can't do any damage with my damage stealers that rely on ignore defense, and it's very easy to counter me. I'm always forced to ban specific champions like Armans or Grixia, and the chances are that they actually have multiple lockout champions anyway. Though also kind of what Biohack said, that actually lately I've started to do a lot better because we got Narses and Ankara, and they have been really good against lockout teams and so on. But like the affinities on primals is the one way that you can kind of RNG cheese them. Often I feel like if I go second against a team with a lot of CC, the only win conditions I have is basically either proccing Polymorph, and I only have 2 champions with 6-star blessing, so I can't really use a lot of Polymorph. And the other win condition is I get weak hits, and that's why I often try to pick something like Rotos against Grixia, and the Grixia might weak it, or Taltus against Lazarus, and Lazarus might weak it, and that's basically my win condition. And in many battles, many battles, the only win condition is basically either Polymorph proc or weak hit. But that's the only thing that you can do with Go second teams against really good accounts.
Your win condition is pray to the RNG gods. And it's funny that you mentioned Polymorph, because I was going to chime in and say that I think one of the things that's also made Arena harder in the last several months is the Polymorph quote-unquote nerf, which was absolutely a buff, because now you see nukers and Polymorph. You always had support champs, but you just see way more Polymorph in general at the high end, if people are lucky enough or they've spent enough to have 6-star Polymorph on their champions. And it's definitely something that I've seen more often, where everybody knows I am vehemently opposed to Polymorph. I absolutely hate it. I think it actually has more of a place in the game now because of Mythicals than it did in the past, and the way that Mythicals work with ignoring resistance. I have a lot of thoughts on how Plarium has kind of taken Arena and made it into this giant RNG fest, but definitely Polymorph plays a large role in that, in my opinion, because if a certain champ gets polymorphed, it doesn't matter if you're the stronger account, it doesn't matter if you're faster, it doesn't matter if you pick the right champions, none of that matters. If you end up with a champion polymorph for 2 turns, you're probably going to lose that battle if it's a key champion on your strategy. And I think that's been one of the more frustrating things, and why I haven't played as much live Arena recently is, number one, without a doubt for me, Polymorph, and just the absolute just tiredness of having to deal with that, where it's like, I can't counter this other than pray I have low enough accuracy on champions, or I just get lucky, and it drives me personally nuts from a strategy standpoint. But yeah, it's really become a big RNG type battle, and so I'm encouraged, and I'm happy to hear you guys say that as well, because that's what I've seen, where for me, I feel like I might have the better champions, I might have the better strategy, and a lot of times it just doesn't matter. I just get cheesed because of stuff like Polymorph. Though I will say, I am so happy, as an avid Helicath hater, I am so happy Helicath is gone. So sorry, Shinny. That strategy used to drive me insane. I remember I absolutely lost my mind playing one dude, I think playing one of the Chinese players, where we had a 30-minute battle that I would have won at the very end, and then I finally ran out of time, and he was cheesing me with Helicath, and I think I actually lost my mind. So That's the one good thing. Good. Helicath is gone. Great. Mythicals were the best thing that ever existed. Thank you, God.
By the way, let me say something about Helicath. I used to get so many hate messages about Helicath that I started literally as a troll. I started putting Helicath more on my video thumbnails just because people were giving me angry messages, and people really hated Helicath. Like there was actually multiple people that like not just once, but they like started sending me like consistently like death threats about Helicath. I probably it was mostly like joking, but people took Helicath very seriously. He was kind of OP, but to be fair, I mean, which one you think is more OP? Helicath when he wasn't countered as hard, or let's say something like Galatir right now? Which one is, or Armans? Maybe Armans. Which one is more OP?
Galathir and Armans, in my opinion, are more OP. I think the hardest thing, like when you look at countering stuff, in my opinion, is Polymorph limits your counters, right? Like the reason why, in my opinion, Helicath was so hard to counter is you couldn't strip that buff once it was on. Like once that block damage buff was on and you went to try to strip, you were probably going to become a sheep from one of the champions on somebody's team, because at this point, a lot of top players have 6-star blessings that make it tough to get this stuff off. So that was probably, for me at least, the number one frustration. Though I will say, I was never one of the people that sent nasty messages to someone. I would just immediately get angry on stream and lose my mind. So I just want to clarify that. I did not send any mean messages to Shinny about like, damn you and your Helicath strategies for proliferating. So yeah, it's an interesting place where Live Arena is at. So let me ask you guys, so we're talking now how RNG is more prevalent. It's harder to win. Are you a bigger fan of where Live Arena is now after the introduction of Mythicals versus before? You know what I mean? Like the meta really before Mythicals was almost entirely Taurus Marichka at all times. And obviously now we have Narcissus to counter that stuff. But where do you think personally Live Arena is at for you? Like what is your favorite meta that you've seen in Arena in general? And where do you think Live Arena is at now? And we'll start with you. We'll start with Shinny. We'll go back around. So Shinny, where are you at?
It's kind of hard to say. I don't really have a strong opinion which one is actually worse or better meta. I think I kind of like them equal. I feel like I used to be like random cheese strategies used to be more viable, like running Initware or something like that. I used to be able to win against good accounts with those strategies. I don't know if it's really the new champions or people just got better builds and got more competent. But yeah, I don't know how to say. I feel like I'm definitely doing worse now with Mythicals, but I feel like it's very close that when we got Ankora and Narcissus, even if you don't have White King Narcissus, Ankora actually by herself is very good and very useful against lockout teams, which for me personally, when I use go second teams, usually every team that I meet, or like not every team, but very often they have more than one lockout. It might even be 3 or 4 lockouts, because let's say that they have like Grixia and Yumeko. They might also have like Galatir and Lazarus. So there's many lockouts that are not just like pure Warlord, that they pick a Reviver or Duker, and it also does lockout. And I heavily struggle with those, and Ankora has been super helpful against it. So I kind of feel like it's getting a lot better. I used to struggle much more before the release of Ankora, and I kind of feel like, I mean, we're surely going to get like mythical Void champions eventually. So there's going to be power creep eventually. I'm sure in 6 months, there's going to be a champion that counters Galatir and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's going to develop. And to be honest, I feel like it's kind of boring if the meta doesn't change at all. The classic arena meta was the exact same for more than a year. Yeah. I thought that was super boring. It used to change a lot more in the past. And I kind of like the fact that live arena meta changes more often. Though I wish we would get more nerfs. Like I think like Galatir and Armans, for instance, we definitely should do something about those kind of mechanics.
Well, you and I are definitely heavy on the nerf train, and I know that we made a video recently, I think it was either your channel or my channel, where we talked about how I think we ranked some of these mythicals, and for us, or these champions in general, I think Armans was number 2 and Galathir was number 1 on our most like broken, overpowered stuff. And I actually am going to ask all you guys for your top 5 like champions. Like, what are your top 5 champions you think are best in the current meta? But yeah, I'm right there with you. Nerf the hell out of them. That's going to piss a lot of people off. It always does. People.
Let me say, I'm not even saying we talked about this on either your or my video. I'm not even saying nerf the hell out of them.
Yeah,
no. I'm saying do a small nerf on them and see how it happens.
A small adjustment.
Maybe you need to do small nerfs on top champions all the time, or let's say multiple times of year. I'm not saying that make Galatir unviable, but I'm saying that if champion has like 70% win rate and the second best champion is 50% win rate, maybe you do like 5% nerf, whatever it is, to damage or anything, just base speed or something like that. Do a little bit nerf, see how it happens, and try to adjust it that way. I'm not saying that destroy Armans or destroy Galatir, but they could do a little bit tweak, and it could go a long way, actually.
Yeah, I don't want to get your channel like with all the hate comments like mine has been whenever I call for this stuff. So to clarify, you're absolutely right. I don't want that either. I don't want champions to be unviable or completely useless. That's never the goal. But I do agree balancing should go both ways personally. So, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Biohacks? What do you think about the current meta?
Yeah, I think I probably like it better than the Taurus Marichka meta. I didn't hate the Taurus Marichka meta. I don't have Taurus or Marichka, but I figured out ways to deal with them, and it wasn't really a problem. The only thing about them is that it was a little old because everyone was always running the same thing. And it's like, yeah, I can beat it. Like, I figured it out, but it's like, come on, let's get a little more diversity. I would say that there is a lot more diversity right now with the mythicals, especially, and outside of like the very top end players, a lot of people don't have every single mythical, so they can't, they have to use what they have, right? I also think one thing that we haven't mentioned at all that has changed the meta a lot is just the fact that a lot more people have stone skin accessories now. Stone skin, except like nukers in Savage plus stone skin or lethal plus stone skin, that's a lot more common and that kind of thing. So that's changed up the meta in and of itself. Honestly, I would have if the Taurus Marichka meta was happening now, I think it would be even worse with like Tauruses that are in stone skin. It's really hard to deal with him. But yeah, I think overall I like the current meta better. But I like the change. I think like what Shinny said that's what's important, is that it's changing periodically. Like, don't get stuck in something that's stale for a long period of time. As for the RNG aspect of Arena, like I personally don't really care that much about the RNG. Like, I kind of view live arena matches like you would view poker, where your goal is to maximize your chance of winning and taking risks to try and get the win that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And you're going to lose a lot of fights due to luck, but that's not really, I'm not trying to win every fight. I'm just trying to win as many fights as possible, if that makes sense. So I actually don't really care that much about how much RNG is in live arena. I'm totally fine with that.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I am diametrically opposed to that.
I kind of agree with that as well. Yeah,
that's great. I love that. I'm so I put it like this. I am not someone who doesn't want any RNG, because that is not fun. I want some sprinkling of RNG. What I don't like is RNG that I don't have any type of what I would consider counterplay to. So that's why I'm so against polymorph at the high level, is that I feel it's extremely difficult to try to figure out some type of reliable counter to that. I don't think there is one. And I don't like the idea of having to just hope, like go into a battle and I just hope that I don't become a sheep, when I pick a certain champion. So that's like what drives me crazy about it.
Without those elements, like let's say weak affinity or polymorph, often people would have like no hope. There's no chance of winning. And I like exactly what Biohack said, that sometimes you need to roll the dice, and you already know that the only win condition is you need to pick the strong affinity against his Lazarus or something like that. That's the only way you can beat him, and you're trying to maximize your gain. And obviously all of the accounts is not equal. Some accounts are much better than others. Like Biohack said that everybody doesn't have every mythical champion. Some people don't have any mythical champions. So there's a big variation. And the fact that there's at least something that you can do to maybe have a small chance to beat against big accounts. I remember there was one big account. I'm not going to say his name because he got super mad when he lost to me. But there was one strong account, and he was running like Shu, Chen, Grixia. I don't recall, but it was like ultra well team. And then he lost to my Kaimar Staldus team, and he got super mad about it. And it's super fun when you can get those, weak hits or polymorph at the right timing, and you're doing your best.
You bring up a really interesting point. I'm going to get to it in a second. Let's jump to you, Cruisin, though, because Cruisin, what are your thoughts on this? Are you maybe I'm the only person here who really hates sheep this much, which would be shocking to me, but where are you at?
To be fair, about the meta, I think we are having the best meta we got in the last 4 years, because we got the most diversity out of the champions we have on the game right now. For a year, we had like 3 first picks that everybody gonna do. Now we got a first pick, but we never know which one's gonna be the second pick. You know, now we got Armors as the priority of first pick for everybody, but we don't know which one's gonna be the second pick. It can be Narcissus, it can be Taras, it can be Mari, it can be Sifi, it can be Galatir, it can be Siegfried, it can be any champion. Like it can be Wukong, it can be UDK. You know, we have so many options now that I think it's a very fun meta. But the only thing I don't like is the way Polymorph makes the difference of the battle just proccing once. You know, to be fair, I would like them to reverse Polymorph to the first form. You need accuracy. If Polymorph need the accuracy, it would change the arena completely, because the amount of champions that would be possible to use Polymorph would drastically drop to 25% of the champions that are using it right now. That are almost every fucking champion. And yeah, I think just this change, reverse to the back, the first form of Polymorph, or the second one, I think it's the second one, it would be perfect, because it would reduce the number of Polymorph. You have a lot of diversity and a lot of ways of winning. You know, for sure, accounts that has more mythicals now has a lot of advantage against accounts that does not have mythicals. That's a good thing, because if you have a lot of speed and a lockout champion and you don't have mythicals, you're gonna have some trouble to win, because if they took your stone skin or get through your reaction, you're gonna lose even without having a turn. You know, that's a problematic thing. And that's why Armans is so powerful, because Armans is a very troublesome pick right now, but a lot of people hate it because he makes so much difference. I have a different opinion about it. I think Armans is the closest champion that a free-to-play have to bring down a whale with the lower amount of effort. You know, Armans diminishes the gap between a whale and a free-to-play in a way that most of people doesn't notice it. If you don't have Armans, it's gonna be so hard to beat some whales. But if you have it,
I had to kind of disagree with that, because you're just gonna ban Armans every time. If you're like free to play and your best champion is Armans and your second best champion is like 10 times worse, Armans is just gonna get banned every time. I feel like actually it benefits free to play a lot in like classic arena or tag team arena, but in live arena I think it benefits the whale accounts a lot more, because Armans is not going to be the only good champion on your account. You're also going to have like Galatir or Grixia or Shuchen and Georgit or something like that, and you're forced to ban the Armans, and then you can't ban the other OP thing that you would have banned without the Armans. But if you meet somebody whose I don't know, best champion is like Armans, and the second best champion is like they are running like Nuke, Staldus, and I don't know, like Staldus and Ragas with Python and that kind of stuff, you don't need to ban any of those. So
that's interesting.
For
that's
sure, there's a power gap.
Yeah,
there is a power gap. But with Armans and without Armans, the gap is even higher. It's bigger.
So I want to talk about this a little bit, and I'm going to give my thoughts here quickly too. So I love the diversity of this meta as well. I would agree with everybody where there are definitely more champions that can be picked now than previously. I certainly am not an Armans fan, and I've given a lot of reasons as to why. I think you're absolutely correct. I do think Armans lowers that gap. I don't like him because I think he, like you said, he's a guaranteed first pick. I would counter what you said, Cruisin, in saying that there was almost always a first pick before. It just was Sifi. Like Sifi was the one you almost always saw first pick before. Now it's Armans. I think Armans is just, his kit is, in my opinion, too strong in that he can solo an entire team. I don't like that. I don't think that should be possible. by any champion in the game. And obviously there are people that differ, and that's totally fine. Now, the one thing that I will say that I'm really curious here is we talk about free-to-play players being able to compete with Krakens and whales. But my question is, should they? Like, seriously, should they? From a perspective of someone who's dropped, like, let's say, and I'm not saying this is what I've spent, but let's say you spent $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, which some people have spent on this game. Do you think that it's ethical for someone who's spent that much money? And again, you can hate pay to play players all you want. That's totally fine. But should you really be able to compete with them if you spent $1,000 on an account versus that? I'm going to come out and say, absolutely not. No way. You should not have a chance in hell just by the very, economics of how this game works. If you're competing with someone who spent that much money, then you have a problem in your game design, because at that point, that to me doesn't make any type of sense. And I'm not saying that you should spend money, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that if you have spent that level and you have a free-to-play player who has any chance in hell against you, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me from an economic standpoint. So I don't know. I'm curious that's a very controversial opinion. I might get flamed hard in the comments there by free-to-play players. I'll tell you this, nobody loves to whine more than free-to-play players. A lot of people say it's the Krakens. Nah, it ain't even close. It ain't even close. So I might get flamed super hard for that. But I do have a free-to-play account, and I will say this, never in a million years do I expect to win battles on a free-to-play account that I shouldn't win. I expect to lose the battles that I should lose, and maybe every once in a blue moon, I get extremely lucky, or I just completely out-strategize someone who has a much stronger account, and those are the wins that, of course, I really enjoy. But yeah, so this is controversial maybe, but I don't know. What do you guys think? So obviously we have two ultra spenders in here, two much lower spenders. What are your thoughts on that? Am I completely off base? Or like, Drock, you're out of your mind?
I strongly disagree with you.
Good, great, awesome. Cruisin disagrees. Biohack, what do you think? You disagree as well?
Oh yeah. No, you're out of your mind. No, I mean, I think the best. I mean, yeah, I think the best form of game is one where the spending doesn't matter at all and it's purely skill and strategy.
1 million. I just want to say something. 1,000,000% agree with you there. I want to make something crystal clear before we even go on, because I know this is a hot take. I absolutely agree with that. I wish we didn't have to spend a cent in this game to get champions or to get gear or to do anything. And obviously you could do it free to play, but it is extremely, extremely difficult and insanely luck-based at that point, where you have to be lucky like Boozer and end up with a Taurus and a Rotos and everything else. So completely agree with you there. I would much rather have spending not factor into this game whatsoever. I'd much rather it be something like a competitive first-person shooter. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I definitely got to qualify this, because people are going to be coming for me. I can feel it. So, okay. So Biohack, you disagree as well. Cruisin disagrees. Awesome. Shinny, I'm sure you disagree too. Lay it on me.
But I would kind of say I get your point. Let's say I mildly disagree. First of all, I will say that I think kind of like Cruisin pointed out before, I'm going to disagree with that, but he said that the meta is the most best or most diverse that it has been in past 4 years. But I think the meta is actually very different in Classic Arena and Live Arena, and you can't really compare them. That's because in Classic Arena, you're fighting against a static team, and you only need to counter that team. You don't actually need to have a strong team. You just need to beat that specific team, meaning that G strategies and all kinds of off-meta things are much more... right now, there isn't really too many of those, but there has been many of those in the past, and there is much more potential for those. I think Classic Arena, which people are going to get mad, but I think Platinum Arena is actually much more free-to-play friendly than Platinum Arena. But when both of you can pick and ban champions and you're battling real time, it's a lot less free-to-play friendly, and it's a lot harder to beat Mega Whales if you have a lot lesser account. But I feel like it still should be possible. I agree it's fair that the whales have advantage. Of course, they need to have advantage, but I feel like if the meta is so that whoever has bigger stats or highest empowered champions, they win, I think that's going to be boring for the whales. Of course, they are going to have advantage, but it is more fun for, I think, everybody, that if somebody does something really smart or maybe they have unexpected builds that you didn't expect, or they come up with some very weird champion that you haven't seen before, and you don't know how to deal with that. It is possible to win top accounts, and I think it's a lot harder to do that in live arena. It's a lot more viable in classic arena, and I think the main way that we could mitigate it and kind of bring it back to the old days, where a lot of epics had seen like were meta champions even in top platinum arena, many epics, not like 1 or 2, but like 10 different epics. I think the main way that we can do it is, again, that we have talked with you before, we need to constantly do small nerfs on the top champions, and when the different champions are more equal on their level to others, then people will start using more random champions that are not popular right now, and they might pick some random pick to counter a specific champion, because you will see a bigger pool of different champions being used. But when there's a couple of specific good champions that are mostly used, and they're usually going to be the new hottest thing, like mythical champions or voice or whatever is the newest thing to be released, or just the newest champion, those are mostly going to be on the big spenders. Some people might get lucky, but generally they are going to be on those. And if they are too much better than the other stuff and there's no counter until Plarium releases the next OP thing that counters that, I think that's bad. I think it would be fun if some old champions would sometimes be viable, and let's say that you use some random new champion, and maybe we can bring old champion that has never been used or was popular 5 years ago. Maybe some team Angar is super good against specific top support that otherwise is really good, but you can kill it with Angar or something like that. I think that would be super good for the game, and it kind of was like that at one point in Classic Arena.
Yeah, so I actually want to jump in here because you make a good point, and you actually are helping me clarify my own thoughts on this. So on that subject, right, of the people who have spent versus not, I am never against someone who has employed a better strategy winning a battle, right? There are many people who have spent in this game who have absolutely zero idea what they're doing in Arena, don't know strategy, can't figure it out. They may have spent infinite amounts of money, but they don't have the strategy to go along with it. And I do want to qualify and clarify what I said earlier, where if someone has a better strategy, they should absolutely win that fight for sure. Like, you know what I mean? If you are picking the right counter picks for an enemy team and you spent way less, yeah, you definitely should win that fight, of course. I think what drives me crazy, though, is where you have maybe one player who is got better gear, better champions, picks the right strategy, you know, does everything that they should to win a battle, and, for example, gets 3 champions sheeped and loses. That's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy, where you've made the right decision strategically, you have a significantly stronger champion as well as better gear, and yet somehow you're coming out of a battle through no fault of your own, losing in spite of doing, quote unquote, what should have been a winning choice. That's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. That's really what I'm getting to. And again, I'm a dirty whale. I'm aware. I'm a spender. Hate me all you want. But realistically, I do think that should be the way that it should work out, where if someone is facing someone and strategically making the right decisions, they do deserve to win that fight, you know, especially if they have stronger gear.
To be fair, we always had that. It was the 2%. The problem is now the 2% was converted in 25% with the Polymorph.
Yes. Yeah,
so it's a lot more present.
That's the difference, I think, for me, is the fact that 3% I could live with, 3% whatever, that's kind of that spicy RNG. 20 to 25% is just nuts. And 20 to 25%, I might say, up to 4 different times. So it's really not 20 or 25%. It's now more like 60% or higher when you look at the math behind it. That's what drives me absolutely bonkers and why I truly hate Polymorph in its current form. And the funny thing is, I wouldn't hate it as much if it weren't so strong. Like if someone got Polymorph and it was 1 turn and they didn't lose any health, but they were taken out of the battle for 1 turn, and like that was kind of how it worked, I actually wouldn't be so opposed to it. And like I said earlier, I do think it plays a very important part now, because for some of these mythicals, there really isn't another counter. There isn't, in my opinion, a great Galathier counter to his second form, other than hoping you have a Polymorph proc, because of the fact that he's going to ignore resist on that ability that places block active skills. And speaking of which, I don't think anybody here has a Galathier except for Doc Moreau. Is that correct?
I got.
Oh,
I don't-
Cruisin! You son of a bitch.
I
Cruisin's
don't
got
have
one
any
too.
mythicals apart from Mikagen. But
Shinny's
I
He's
only
got-
got one mythical and it's Galatia.
Oh my God, he only got one mythical and it's
Oh
gonna
my
shut the podcast down. We're done. He got
By the way-
Galathir, guys. It's over.
By the
It's
way, Drock,
over.
one great example. This is, like I said, there used to be a lot of cheese strategies back in the day. Like
Yeah.
for instance, the uncommon champion Fellhound actually used to be, I think it no, not Fellhound, Deathhound. Deathhound used to be used in top Platinum Arena. It has like ignore defense on A1. There used to be all kinds of weird stuff that actually saw like top use in Platinum Arena back in the day. By far my favorite raid video ever is from Stu Gaming, which is his triple Dark Elhain Platinum push. And he's pushing like either with Valkyrie or Mauli and 3 Dark Elhains. And he's getting his teams frozen on purpose against Stormins. And then he's just beating top accounts with his random meme team that happens to counter those specific popular strategies. And I feel like that's the way to go. I think everybody's going to agree with you that, or we might disagree with you. Like, I think we all agree that Polymorph is not good mechanic, or it's very frustrating. But I think me and Biohack are probably more going to think that it's kind of needed mechanic, because there's some things that you can't counter, and we need some ways to do it. But it would be much better if there was more diversity in champions, and you could bring something like Dark Elhain to counter Galathir or stuff like that, which used to happen a lot in the past in the raid. But I feel like the champions got too strong, and you can't come up with those kind of like cheese strategies anymore.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good point, because diversity is better than it was for Live Arena for sure when it first launched. But I agree with you, Shinny. It's nowhere near what it used to be for just strictly Classic Arena, pre-Polymorph, pre-Stone Skin, pre all of this stuff. Like you used to be able to throw things like Lady Kimi's in there and Kaimars and all sorts of stuff with debuffs, Madame Saris, whatever else. Like you have to be insane to try that at high level arena nowadays, or just have balls of steel, because you're going to become a sheep almost guaranteed. But Biohack, would you agree with what Shinny was saying? You know, from the polymorph perspective, are you a sheep lover? Tell me the truth, Biohack. Are you a sheep lover?
No. So I'm not a sheep lover. I think sheep. I want sheep in the game. I think I agree 100%. Like, they need to make it a one-turn cooldown. Like, all the things you mentioned are the right changes to sheep. That's what needs to happen. But I don't want it to see it disappear. I think a lot of this goes into the thing we were talking about earlier, where it's just like the overall view of Arena. Specifically, like, Classic Arena is a totally different beast. I never participated in Classic Arena in any serious way at all. But in Live Arena, like, my strategy, like we already talked about in Live Arena, is not about do you win this individual match. It's how many matches are you winning in aggregate. So, you know, I guess that's the thing. Like, that's why sheep probably doesn't bother me as much, because it's not about winning this one particular match and this frustration about this one particular fight. I'm just, I lost that fight to Polymorph, I'm going to move on with my life. It's more about having the ways to think about it more in a bigger picture in terms of winning the most fights possible, as opposed to every individual fight must win that particular one. And I think that's kind of maybe where we have a general disagreement in terms of just like our philosophy to Arena in general.
For sure. I want to win them all. I want to destroy everybody. I never want to lose. Same with you, right, Cruisin?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And if I can win like 5 in a row against the same opponent, it's even better.
Oh, well, yeah, there's nothing more triggering than that. And then, you know, on the other end of that, when you've lost 2 or 3 in a row, you're like, why is this matchmaking making me face the same damn person every single time? You start losing your mind.
By the way,
I'm certainly guilty of that.
At the same token, I feel like I literally was talking about it on my last video, that the most funnest battles I actually have in Live Arena is when I fight against somebody multiple times in a row, but they are kind of like equal matches that either side can win. And every time you do different picks and try to counter other strategies, if they're somewhat equal, even if they're not like equal, but if both sides have a chance of winning and you battle the same guy multiple times in a row, I think that's actually super fun. But the issue is that if you have like 0% chance or 100% win rate, then it's kind of boring.
I like maybe 2, but then after that, I'm like, give me somebody new. I don't want to deal with this again. But then again, like, it really does depend on who you're facing. Because if I'm facing Doc, I'm like, what the hell? I really don't want to face Doc again. And that actually leads into a question I was going to ask at the end, but I think I'm going to ask it now, which is, in your live arena experience, what player do you think has been your hardest matchup? So who do you think when you face them, you see them, you think, shit, this guy again? So let's start with you, Biohack, because we haven't started with you yet. So Biohack, who is your oh shit, I'm facing this guy again, why do you hate me, Plarium, in the matchmaking system?
I have two things I want to comment about this. First, I don't know if there's any one particular player. There are some people that I know are viewers of my stream and know my account. And I know that I know every champion on their account and how it's built. And I'm like, if I played your account, I would never lose to me, right? Because I know what they have and I know how to beat myself with their account. So CGZ Rice is one where I fight him and I beat him all the time, but I know you should never ever lose to me because I know your account and I know how to beat myself.
He's
so
gonna
he's
be watching
one
this video. He's gonna be like, Biohack's talking shit. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I tell him this all the time because we're talking in chat while we're fighting sometimes, or in the recordings. I've mentioned this lots of times. So that would be one. It's not honestly, it's not any of the big Krakens for the most part. Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna ask. I know you haven't been doing a lot of fights recently, Drock. So maybe maybe this isn't as applicable to you, but for Shinny and Cruisin, especially Cruisin playing Doc Moreau's account, I have found that the diversity of players that I'm getting matched with is way, way, way more broad than it used to be. And I think it's because the matchmaking is heavily biased to match you with people in the same rank as you, not necessarily, or the same gold 4 versus gold 3, not rating in particular. I'm curious if that's been your experience, Doc, if it's still just only, or playing Doc's account only matching you against the top players, or are you fighting a lot more people who are ranked 4,800 these days? Because I found that I'm getting matched with way more diversity than I used to be.
Yes, me too. To be fair, it depends on the time. I've been playing Live Arena since the day one, and we start pushing hard since the day one. And through the time, there were 3 players that I think they are hard because I know how many times I lost 3 battles in a row. Since Live Arena was launched, only 3 times I lost 3 battles in a row on Dog's account. And one of them, it was Drock. I would say
Goddamn
that.
right it was. I remember.
I lost to him 3 times in a row. That happened once. I lost to Val, Mad Val, 3 times in a row.
Val is good. Yeah.
These are the only 3 players that I lost 3 times in a row, I think.
Yeah.
So I might say these 3 are very hard fights, and they had a know-how of the game and how to build champions and how to counter strategies, and they decorate your champions the way you decorate them. If you face me 2 times, I'm gonna know exactly the speed of your champions because I'm gonna put a symmetry up between my champions and your champions, and I'm gonna know the speeds. Unless you change between our fights, the speeds, I'm gonna know your accuracy, your resistance, your champions, your speeds, your stun skins, your reactions. It needs only 2 fights to decorate what you have. So people that adapt too fast are the most annoying battles, and there are only 3 times that I lost 3 in a row. So I decorate the names.
Dude, that's so funny that you say that. It is so true, because I think that's the mark of a great player, and where the strategy really comes into it, where adaptation, when you do have these multiple battles in a row and you'll see people throw out different strategies, but then you manage to counter that, that's really, 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 really hard to do. So I'm glad that you mentioned that as something that comes up. So, all right. So I'm honored. I'm in that pantheon for you, Cruisin on Doc's account, of course. And Cruisin, I think we faced off maybe once or twice on your other account as well. Yeah. So that's awesome. Shinny, what about you? Anybody that you see where you're just like, shit?
Well, I thought Biohack was going to give the exact same answer as me, but then he kind of went into different direction that I thought he was going to say. But I kind of mentioned it before that in my account, it's very one-dimensional. I have 3 nukers, and 2 of them, Rotos and Wukong, have the exact same counters. I have very good gear, though, so if they don't counter me, I can beat top 3 accounts, sometimes surprisingly well, and then I can lose to average weak accounts. And I think most it's kind of maybe a little bit self-serving to say this, but I think it's literally true that I have most trouble against my viewers because they know how to counter me. And often, like, some people that like dislike me, and when they get matched with me, they like tag me in Discord or something like that. And they don't watch my videos, they don't know my pool, and then they lose to me with like insanely better account. I kind of like it, but yeah, I pretty much usually I get destroyed by my viewers and I destroy my haters. So I think that's kind of I'll take it.
What an OG. If I had an editor, I'd have them put glasses on you right now. The sunglasses emoji would come down, but it's just me editing, and I'm too lazy to do that.
By the way, I'm not even just saying it. Like that's literal. I've talked about it before. That literally happens. That's how I feel, at least.
That's great. That's great. I'll tell you my hardest matchup. So I agree with you, Cruisin, that Val is a great player for sure. Like, there's a handful of players where I'm always like, I know this is going to be a tough battle. Val, without a doubt, is one of them. I think Ziggy has a pretty good account and is really tough sometimes, for sure. But without a doubt, for me, it's definitely you on Doc's account, and you specifically, Cruisin, because one of the things I used to say when I would face you was when Doc's account was being driven by multiple people, the difference in strategy was night and day, where there would be one guy, and I don't know who it is, and no hate to him, but I'd be like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, this dude has everything. What is he doing? Like, this should not be this easy. And then there would be another guy, and I found out this was you later. I'm like, damn it, this guy's pissing me off. Like, this guy, it's like suddenly this guy understands what he is doing, and now this is an exceptionally hard fight and very, very, very difficult to win. So without a doubt, for sure, the person that I am always most frustrated to see pop up name-wise, and yet at the same time, I love it because it ends up being a great, clip or rage bait or whatever else, is you specifically on Doc's account, because I can tell right away that it's you with the picks versus anybody else that's played the account, where I'm like, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, here we freaking go. And it's very, very rare for me to lose. I also don't know how many times I've lost 3 in a row, but it's really exceptionally rare. And without a doubt, you are one of the people that has done it to me. For sure. So there were some pretty epic battles there, but I love that. I love getting a chance to talk to other arena players because, all of us have competed in that high level at this point and have faced each other. The only people I think that haven't, I've never faced you, Biohack. So we have not.
We fought a few times, like months and months and months ago.
Did we actually? Wait, did you beat me? Did I win? I don't remember.
I think you won. I don't even think it was close.
Okay, well there you go. I don't remember this. Never mind. I feel bad. I completely.
But this was like this was like before I was like really into live arena.
Yeah,
and,
this had to have been
it was a long time ago.
This had to have been a long time ago.
Long time
Shinny,
ago.
we have fought I think once, and I definitely was trolling on the second battle because I used Fatalis.
I don't recall what exactly happened, but I remember when I fought you. In the first battle, I misclicked a pick, and then I thought you gave me like a handicap in the second battle or something like that.
Yeah, you misclicked on Xena, and instead of using like her AoE, you used her A1. I was like, oh, and I was trying to rationalize at the time. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, maybe he's just saving it because he knows he's not going to be able to kill me. He's going to use it the next go around in case reaction. That's what I said in my head.
I thought I would have won it if I didn't misclick.
Yeah, well, so then I watched your video and you were like, the misclick. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. And then the second time I was 1,000,000% trolling because there was this whole drama around Fatalis and how good Fatalis was. And I was, as I always am, extremely opinionated and was like, Fatalis is trash. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not good whatsoever. And I had a viewer in the chat who was like, nah, Shinny says he's good. And I was like, then that's ridiculous. I'll put my god tier Fatalis in here and let's see him get worked. So that's great. And then obviously Cruisin, you and I have fought more time. I mean, like, probably more than anybody else at this point. And you talk about matchmaking. I have also, even though I haven't played as much recently, and I wasn't sure if it was because maybe I just fallen down the leaderboard, but I have also seen more diversity in my matchmaking because for the longest time, I would almost always get matched against only other people like Doc's account, like top 10, the vast majority of the time, maybe top 20. So that's interesting because I have also experienced that where I'm getting a much wider range of people to face. So really interesting to hear that. I'm gonna say this. Yeah, like that's
about it. More people playing.
Yeah, more people playing and also more variety of strategies and interesting fights. And I think that's good for the game as a whole, for sure. Like, it to me, like facing the same person 10 times in one live arena session is mentally draining. It is just frustrating from the perspective of please, whether you're beating them or not, it's just like, I just really want to face someone different. I want some variety here. So yeah, so that's really interesting. So let me ask you guys this, because here's the thing, like this video could end up being 2 hours long. I don't want it to be too long. So I'm going to end it here, but I'm going to ask as we end it, give me, in your opinion, your top 5 champions in the live arena meta right now, starting with you, Cruisin. Who are your top 5 go-tos at the moment?
No doubt, Armans, top 1. Top 2, Galatier. Top 3, Siegfried. Top 4, Gizmak, I would say. And top 5, Narcissus.
Okay. I like that. I can totally understand the thought process behind all of those. Biohack, what you got? What's your top 5?
Yeah, so I think it makes a huge difference whether you run go first or go second strategies, and we've talked about this a few times, but I have very different, like Narcissus. I'm like, oh, every time I see Narcissus, I'm like, oh sweet, I'd way rather fight Narcissus than like a bunch of other stuff. But I would say Armans for sure. It's either Armans or Galathier is number 1 or number 2. Siegfried as well. Siegfried is so good right now. As for the, like, I feel like those 3 are like by far the hardest ones I have to deal with. After that, it drops off quite a bit. I mean, I think Crixia is pretty good. Gizmak is pretty good as well, especially for countering like go second style teams. Because I run go first, I don't see him a ton, but yeah, he's very strong. Yeah, I think that's what I would have to go with. So I guess the same thing as Cruisin, but sub maybe Crixia for Narcissus.
Okay. And Shinny, what you got?
Yeah, by the way, I completely agree with what Biohack just said, that it super depends on your perspective. And knowing that, like, I think most of the top accounts, they run more speed teams than other people, but it kind of depends on the player in what quantity. But I only run go second teams, so I have very different experience than many other people. And for me, for instance, and this is one thing that I've had debates with people multiple times. Me personally, I think Siegfried is kind of very easy to counter and overrated. I feel like
I agree, which is so interesting because I know Cruisin and Biohack
the hardest champions I have
are so on him, but I actually 1,000,000% agree with you, Shinny.
I'm kind of like happy if they pick Siegfried because
yes.
it's like the easiest top champion for me to beat. And again, like I said, my 3 nukers are Rotos, Narcissus, and Wukong. So Harima is big issue for me, so it might be higher on my list than you guys. But I will say that rank 1 is Armans. I don't think anybody is going to question it. I think rank 2 is still going to be Galatier. I mean, that's debatable, but I would say Galatier is overall the best champion in the game. But I would still put Armans in live arena as rank 1 because you can get through many strategies with that. But for classic arena, I will say Galatier would be better. But Armans, Galatier, rank 3 would be Harima because there's some matchups, like some champions, like let's say Rotos and Wukong, especially Wukong. There's no way that you can beat a Harima team with Wukong. If the enemy has like Harima, like let's say Harima, lockout champion, and Armans, there's basically nothing that you can do with Wukong. The only win condition, there's one way, but you hate that way. The only way to win against that team is you get Polymorph on Harima. That's the only way to beat that. That's why Polymorph is necessary. That's why we would need some random champions that can counter these mechanics. But often I don't pick my best team. I pick Polymorph champions because I know that I can't beat this team in any other way. I can't ban the Harima. The only way I can beat it is if the Harima gets polymorphed. And that's why I struggle with it. But I know many other people don't think Harima is as big issue as I do. But Harima would be rank 3. I would say that rank 4 is Lazarus. I think Lazarus offers a lot of utility. Like he, ignores shields. He even has a revive. He does self-attack buff. He does so many things that he kind of accidentally counters many meta champions and can be kind of hard. But it's a squishy champion, so it's not like you can't kill it. But I feel like Lazarus is so good that I will still put it in top 5, even though I wouldn't put George it, even though he's super good. But he's more hit and miss. I feel like Lazarus is more consistent. And then on the last slot, I would put Crixia. So I would say that I think Crixia is super good on Vacuum. But if Crixia was Void champion, she would be so much better. Like the thing with Crixia is that there's actually many popular Magic Affinity champions, not just like Rotos, but let's say Angora and a bunch of other ones. And that is massive deal with Crixia because if you don't get locked out and your entire strategy is that you have some kind of squeezy speed team, and you lock the enemy out, you have multiple lockouts, they can't do anything, and then they get weak hitted and they are not actually locked out, then that's a win condition.
Yeah, I can totally see that list. I have some of those on my own. Mine is number 1 Galathier, number 2 Armands. Though I think you could absolutely make an argument for Armands being number 1. Really, you can flip flop though. They're 1A and 1B. I hate them both. So yeah, I hate both of them immensely. So Galathier, Armands. I am gonna go, I think, Lazarius here, because I also think Lazarius is underrated by a lot of people because his support form is a lot better than people realize. He definitely is squishy, which is always scary. I'm often scared when I pick him because I'm like, Jesus, please don't die. But Lazarius, and then I'm gonna go Crixia. I use Crixia all the time. I think Crixia, definitely the weak hit stuff sucks, but I dread giving the other team a Crixia versus me not having her. So I'm gonna go Crixia. And then for my fifth one, I'm really torn here because I think you could certainly make an argument that Narcissus belongs in the slot because he counters Taurus, and he also has a block revive, and he combos well with stuff like Ancora. But the one thing about Narcissus I really don't like is the fact that he's like a normal HP nuker and that his damage goes down as his HP decreases. And that oftentimes can get you completely worked. And I used to forget that a lot. I'm like, why is he hitting like a wet noodle? Well, it's because he lost health because he was polymorphed by Armands or something else. So I'm still going to pick him 5th. I still think he's really, really good because he is such a good counter for stuff like Rhodos and Siegfried and other stuff, and obviously Taurus. So I'll go with him. But I almost want to pick Taurus in this spot because I still think Taurus is really damn good and is in some ways not, even though people don't necessarily use him as much, I still think he is a top tier champion. So one more thing before we end, though. One more thing just popped in my head. If you could change one thing, we'll keep this brief. If you could change one thing about Live Arena, what would it be? Let's start with you, Biohack. One thing you change about Live Arena going forward.
You're gonna like this. I would implement the polymorph nerf. Make it a one turn. One turn, keep their full HP. Don't nerf their speed. That's still incredibly good. Still does its job without instantly ending the fight if your one nuker gets polymorphed.
Yes, huge brain answer. The only correct answer. Well done, Shinny. What would be your choice?
Okay, I've actually told you this before. I have thought about this long time ago. I've tried to tell them in CC chat. I've literally tried to push my political meta opinions on them, but I feel like we have one ban and it's after the battle. I think if you had 2 bans and the first ban is after before anybody picks anything, I think that would balance the game a lot. Maybe for top accounts it wouldn't be that big deal, but even for you guys, if you have some like preferred champions and there's some champions that you have maybe better geared or some that you like to use more and some things that really counter it, you can just take one specific champion out of the play even before the picks. I think it will give more strategy and it will give more, like, let's say, I don't want to say fair game, but it will give more potential to outplay the enemy. Like, obviously, I would always ban Harima before any picks. That's what I would do. I guarantee you my win ratio would be like infinitely higher. I think some people might hate it, but I would love it.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I actually would love 2 bans, but I would rather pick 6 champions and ban 2 than ban 1 before. So I'm on the 2 ban idea. So I love that. Very interesting. Cruisin, what you got? One change you want to see?
It wouldn't be on Live Arena. It would be on Classic Arena. I would see blind fights on Classic Arena. I think that would bring Classic Arena a new magical that it needs. Because right now I only feel the magic on the Live Arena. I don't feel it anymore on Classic Arena. Only on Live. But if it was blind pick on Classic, I think it would be so much more fun.
Oh man, you are so right. I will be completely honest. I do not even play Classic Arena anymore. I don't even bother with it. Part of it is the time reset for me on the East Coast of America is brutal. And the other part is there's frankly no point without a blind arena. It's just absolutely pointless unless you're in the strongest clan. There's just no point in my clan playing. You're not going to win. Doesn't matter how good your account is. I hate Classic Arena because of that. It's desperately needed. So very, very much agree with you there. But obviously my choice is, we all know what it is. F sheep forever. Please make it less powerful. I would love to see that. I agree with Biohack. You can't take it out of the game at this point. So that's definitely one of the things that's changed about my opinion over time because of mythicals. It's got to stay in there. It's the only reliable counter, for some of this stuff. But yeah, it's just way too strong in its current form. And I'll add one more thing to close it out. One of the biggest things that I want to see change overall is please, Plarium, if you happen to watch this hour-plus long video that we've just recorded and our thoughts from some of the top arena players in the game, please, just make changes faster. I am begging you. One of the things that drives me nuts is you announce a change and then you wait 6 to 7 months to do it. It is insane. There's no reason to wait this long. We know Polymorph is still a problem. Change it now. We know more champions need buffs. Do it now. Like, change your backlog in your software development process to do this stuff faster and, you know, give us a bone. But anyway, guys, like I said earlier, we could talk about this stuff for forever. We're all super passionate, but I just want to take a moment to say a huge thank you to Cruisin, to Biohack, and to Shinny for joining me on the channel. If you guys have not subscribed to their channel and follow them, trust me, you want to do it. All of them stream live arena and have absolutely super engaging, exciting, interesting takes on the game. They are all extremely good players as well, which I think is really fun to watch for someone like me, and constantly coming up with different strategies. And as you've seen here, they're all pretty sweet dudes. So yeah, do me a favor and make sure to drop them a like and a follow on their channel. I will link all of their channels below in the description. And if I can figure out how to pin a comment, I'll put a pinned comment as well. So just got to make sure I'm on my laptop. But guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you had as much fun doing this as I did. So this was a lot of fun. This was a blast. Cool. Anything else to say? Anything else before we go? No?
I think we could do another video about Classic Arena specifically. I think
there you
especially like I guess not really you and Biohack, but me and Cruisin. I mean, we have been pushing Classic Arena for like many years, and I guess we both have kind of the same issue that we used to be super into it. We like, I remember like Cruisin, like I'm sure Cruisin remembers very well because we both used to be super into it. But when I was talking before that there used to be more variation and you could cheese with different strategies, I remember Cruisin, for instance, like to use Joffred when he was new, and there was all kinds of like, you know, weird stuff that you could do, and like, you know, we have been doing it for a very long time, so like we have seen the metas and we have lots of opinions about it, I'm sure.
There you go.
Also, we have very different perspectives that we have basically, I guess I'm not in the top clans anymore, not yet until my own clan is one, but we have SP, MAD, and IPR, so we basically have all of the different top clans plus like not one of them, so we have like all the different avenues if we talk about Blind Arena and Platinum Arena. So
yeah, that's a good point. I actually think we lost Biohack. He's totally frozen. So this is a great place to end the video. But guys,
polymorphed.
Yeah, he's been polymorphed. He's been sheep. But guys, give these guys a follow. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched the entire video, you know I like to do this recently. Comment something down below. Let's comment down below in the chat or in the comments. Let's put the word sheep. Yes, if you watch the entire thing, don't put it if you didn't actually watch it. Don't lie. I won't know the difference, but don't lie to me. So if you watch the whole thing, put sheep down there. And if you have thoughts on what we said, by all means, share them. Just, you know, do so respectfully. I know that there are a lot of opinions in here that people might disagree with, but you can absolutely voice your opinion. If you have a difference of opinion, just do so respectfully. That's the only thing that I ask. So have a wonderful day. Catch y'all later. Big Papa Drock out along with Cruisin, Shinny, and Biohack.